Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to my special guest today, Gerald at Tarot Stash. And
Hi.
I hope this isn't an unfortunate time for anybody out there. I just have decided to start doing these live whenever the passion of the moment strikes me, or the inspiration.
Of course.
And I actually wanted to do this one because I missed out on one yesterday afternoon on Longman Tarot. And it was Richie of Longman Tarot and Ben of Beneficial Tarot. And they were discussing things that keep you from buying or using decks. And
Yeah.
this isn't really to deter anybody from buying or using. Was it Gerald? Yes. Entertainment.
For entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance. And also for inspirational and educational purposes only. You do you, and purchase responsibly. Know your limits.
There it is. That's the card I was waiting for.
Yep.
I wanted to welcome, I see Jane the Seeker. Hello. I'm hoping she's feeling a little better today.
Yes.
I see Jason. My body is ready. He says, happy Saturday, folks. Tarot by the Pines. Maruda, hello.
Hello, hello.
I think that's it for now. Jason's referring to us as the dynamic duo.
There you go.
I guess if I'm Robin, that makes you Batman.
I'm Batman.
Oh. So yeah.
Hi, Kristen Louise.
Oh, hey, Kristen. I decided they weren't really putting this out there as a hashtag, but I decided to kind of make it one and expand on it a little bit. And I call it Deck Peccadilloes, which is basically things that you don't like in decks, or things that will keep you from either buying or using a deck, keep you from reaching for it, even if you have one already, you know, like that. And also things that do draw you towards being, you know, a favorite deck or a well-used deck or whatever. Hello, Kim Moon Whisper. So I have 11 prompts, and we're going to go through them one by one.
Yes.
And we won't be showing a lot of cards, but we mostly are opening this up to discussion. So any of you out there that want to play along and add in the chat room your responses, please do. And I'll try my best to get you all in. So what do I want to do? I want to switch that. That's better.
Ooh, close up.
And now let me find my first banner. The first one is price and secondhand. Does price or a secondhand copy, a used copy of a deck, do either of those keep you from buying a deck or adding to your collection?
So for me, you know, I've purchased some very expensive decks, and so I'm okay with price because, you know, sometimes I've purchased responsibly, sometimes I've purchased irresponsibly, and sometimes I did not know my limits. But I have purchased some very expensive decks. I'm not going to name names because people in the chat aren't asking. But I have no problem. I have no problem paying for a deck that I want. And I also have no problem with a secondhand deck. What I do like is, and I have purchased multiple secondhand decks. I appreciate being able to look at the decks to actually see the condition of the cards. So, but That's me. What about you?
I just wanted to welcome in Jamie, who just popped in. For me, well, since I am the resident card curmudgeon, and after having accumulated a maximum of decks that my shelves will store, I have slowed way down on my purchasing and become much more fussy about what I will or won't collect. But price has never been an issue, and that may be because I don't buy a lot of decks anymore. And I mean, you know, I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars or $1,000 on a deck, but I have I think I paid as much as $180 on a deck that was like out of print that I really wanted.
Sweet.
And
listen to me. How sweet, Robin, for you. I've paid more than that.
Okay. Yeah, I've sort of set a limit for myself at 200. I have to really know the deck and really want it badly. And even then, it's still a gamble. Even if I've seen all the cards, it's still a gamble. And I think one of the things that came up yesterday, too, was buying decks on a whim or after only seeing a couple of cards, images or something.
Yes.
I don't do that. Now, if I see something online that intrigues me, I instantly go to YouTube and look for a flip through.
Sure.
And I need to make sure that I like every card in the deck, and I will listen to people also describe the size of the card, the cardstock, the thickness, the weight, all the things that they do or don't like about it. And so I can take that all into account. And I still can be wrong. You know, if it's something I love, I still can get it wrong by buying, and it shows up and, oh, I didn't know that was going to be there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You never know.
Tarot Jackpot is here.
Oh, hello.
In the chat. Hello. And Jane the Seeker said, oh, well, looky who the special guest is. It's the Stash Man. And Jane is sending hellos to everyone. Jennifer H. said, price is a factor for me, particularly when I'm needing to ship from another country, including customs and shipping fees. That's true. That's true. And did you see Jamie's comment?
No.
I will never, ever pay over $180 for a deck. A big set, yes, but FOMO can F off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and, you know, and Jamie said, that should be, say, again, because I have. And I have too. I've actually paid over that for 2 different decks. And Tarot Jackpot said, I've learned to wait. I'm patient.
Yeah.
And Robin, you bring up a really great point. We all know 2020, I bought like 63 decks.
Mm-hmm.
I probably, it would have probably been beneficial for me to buy just half of those, because part of it was filling gaps and all of that stuff. But yeah, I like to watch flip throughs. I don't like to watch walkthroughs because I don't want your opinion about the dang card, because I want to build my own rapport with it.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to comment on, I hate to jump ahead, but I don't think I covered this one. I noticed in the chat yesterday, you said something about you had bought a deck that you had for 22 months before opening.
25 months, and I still have not opened it.
And see now, that like a loud gasp went out in the room yesterday when you wrote that. And for me, I feel like I have to open them right away as soon as I get them, mostly to double check and see that everything is in order, that there aren't any damaged cards or cards missing.
Yes, of course.
So I can rectify it right away.
Yes.
But also, I have this thing about me that I like to do walkthroughs or flip throughs, and I don't feel as at ease doing a walkthrough or flip through later down the line, uh, um, using the deck. I kind of I want to look through it first, but then I want to do a flip through so I can actively use it. And that hasn't always worked out well, because even if I like a deck and start using it, my opinions about it can deepen or change over the course of the next couple of weeks as I'm getting to know it.
Yes, yes.
So,
Jane, you asked me to pay attention to the chat, and Jane the Seeker just said, I just bought myself an expensive set for myself for my birthday. I'm worth it, and her birthday is tomorrow.
oh,
And I'm curious, and several of us in chat are curious, which deck, Jane? Which deck, if you're willing to share? And Jamie has repeated herself 25 months. She also had a gasp.
yeah.
And
You didn't know about that, I guess, right?
no.
What prompts you to keep from opening one for 25 months?
I know for me, it's about the acquisition. It's the process of acquiring something. If you need me to find something, I can find it. So this is one of my superpowers. I have the ability to find things that helped me when I was a props magician for the theater. I could find weird things in odd places. I'm a great manifester.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's oftentimes it's the hunt. It's the hunt. And so, but I have also
I'm confused by that, because you've already had the hunt and found the deck. Why aren't you opening it and using it?
because I like the hunt.
What do you
I
mean?
don't necessarily.
You mean the house?
No, I want to find the deck. If it's an out of print deck,
Yeah.
I want to find it. I want to find it at a good price, and then I want to have it in my collection.
Right.
So there's a different. I want to go out and I search for the bargains. I'm a bargain hunter. I would be perfect to be a bargain hunter for other people to find things.
Okay, so you the deck. Yeah. It's a bargain. It was out of print. It's in your home. It's sitting nearby, within reach, or a few steps, maybe. Why do you not open the deck? I still don't get that.
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't need
okay. I don't know, but Jamie is supporting you. She's going, right, Robin? Love you, Gerald. And Kristen Louise said he's a librarian. He's doing collection development.
Yeah.
So, and I like to have access to a lot of things, but this isn't about me. But so I have learned the price. I have to be very careful about the price, because I don't want to add items to my collection anymore that aren't going to be in my aesthetic. Okay. So like you're being more selective.
Right.
And I will be honest with you, over the last 2 years, I have developed a sense of what my tastes are and what I like and what I appreciate and what I will use and what I will collect and have in my collection. So does that make sense?
Yeah, but if you desire a deck enough to search it out and find it, what is it? I still can't grasp why you won't use it. Is it you want to keep it sealed so you can resell it or move it on?
Well, it's like I have the Vampire Tarot by Robert M. Place.
Right.
I like the story of Dracula. I'm not going to use the deck because it's too large. It's awkward. It's beautiful to look at. So sometimes I will have things in my collection that are beautiful that I like. And by the way, Robin, don't try to understand. Jeffrey doesn't even. No, actually, Jeffrey does understand, but he does help me with the practicality of it.
Okay, so there's a degree of it about the acquisition is the thing, or there's something you love about the acquisition. Yes. I think what the nature of this conversation was meant more or less to be about was, when you have a deck, what are the elements that either repel you from it or draw you to it in using it?
and the 10 other prompts will certainly get us there.
Okay.
By the way, Jane said, signed Grimalkin's Curious Cats with Extra Stuff is the deck she bought for herself.
Okay.
And Jamie said, "Oh, Jane, I love that deck. It's a workbook. I have 2 copies." And Jamie did support me and said, "Gerald, you will use it if spirit moves you." That's true. I will use it. It's like getting out the good china.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, and so I mean, but you have decks that you like, but you don't use, right?
It's true, but I have looked at every one of them as soon as I got it.
Oh, let's see. Yeah.
Determine whether to use it or not. And I think that I'm not trying to be critical. I'm trying to understand, because I think most of the people in here are so desperate to get their hands on a deck that when they get it, they can't wait to like look at all the cards.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
perhaps you've already seen the cards previous to buying those rare decks and know what you've got in there waiting for you, or maybe you don't, and there's some excitement in making yourself wait to know when that happens.
I think everybody should just like and subscribe to Tarot Stash, because sooner or later I'm going to do the unboxing of that deck that I have had for 25 months.
Okay.
And show everybody. So
I would answer the second part of this question, the second hand. I have bought a few secondhand decks, and mostly they feel weird to me. They kind of, I have this weird vibe to me, like that they're dirty or they're used or they're like, I don't know the energy from the people I like it better if I know somebody that I'm buying it from and I kind of trust their energy, even though I usually do a smoke cleaning or incense cleaning or whatever.
Yeah.
But I have bought a deck that was out of print. I was happy to find it. And the box was sticky. And there was a long hair on the deck. And I thought, it just.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that you'll experience anytime you purchase things secondhand.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a smart aleck. And I'm just going to say, I'm powerful enough that ain't nothing going to get through. I'm going to cleanse it. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to rearrange it. I'm going to do all sorts of things to it to get it energetically out. And Richie was talking about yesterday, Longman Tarot, during he and Ben's conversation, it was, the box was sticky. So he used a couple of wet naps, and then he had a deck that was, smelled like of smoke. And he Justin Michael was the one who told me about using charcoal, like fish charcoal, to help soak up the odors. So there's a lot of things that can work. MA the Gray is here. Hello, MA. And Robin's Reflections is here. I love that. I can relate to the good china thing. I am so stingy with some of my decks, and others no problem. And I can't tell you which one to which will be which until I get it in hand. And Kristen Louise is like, ew, a hair. And Jamie,
I have a deck that I bought 3 times because I bought this little deck used secondhand from Sunset Bow. I think her name's Sarah. I think. And she's on the 3 gals, 3 decks or whatever.
3 girls, 1 deck. Yes.
Yeah. And I trust her vibe and her energy. There's something, it felt okay to own her deck. And then the fairies made off with it. I have no idea where it went. Within a week, it disappeared. It's fallen somewhere behind some furniture or something. And I've looked everywhere I can possibly look. I cannot find it. So I went online. It was already out of print. I went online and I bought another copy, one that was used from somebody I didn't know. And as I was going through it, a couple of the cards creased. And so then I went looking again and found a 3rd copy from some bookstore. and that one was still in shrink wrap, and that one was fine. So I have 3.
Well, if hold on, did you get rid of the one with the bent cards?
No, I still have that.
Hold on to that, because if I ever buy anything else from you, you can throw that one in.
Okay.
So, Robin's reflections. Oh, M.A. the Gray said, pass on the hairy deck. Ew. And Jamie said, I do all the things to cleanse a used deck: sun, moon, salt, spritz. And I think, and for me, when I'm looking at secondhand decks, I will buy them at a half-price bookstore, which is what we have here. And sometimes they will have decks. I will also buy them on eBay, but I will read the reviews of the people who are selling it. And the same thing on I do due diligence.
Yeah.
So.
The deck I bought with the hair in it in the dirty box was the Nigel Jackson Tarot. I think he currently has, I think it might be called the Rose Tarot or something that might still be in print, but that one's out of print. And I put it in its own little plastic box, but yet there's still something about it that even though I've cleaned it, it has an overlying aura to it that it's like I just reach for that deck. Yeah. And I'm not sure what that's about. It's just, maybe it's my own thing, maybe it's not the energy, maybe it's just,
and that's okay. I mean, and sometimes with tarot, you won't know that until you get it in your hand. Regina's Tarot and Wirecraft has arrived. Is actually, we know what she's doing. She's work lurking. Her hands are occupied in wire. Jamie, Wandering Mountain Bardic Path, is going to class. And let's see. Kristen Louise, how in the world does a deck get sticky?
Yeah.
Crap on a table, anything with sugar in it. But I have actually heard, Robin, if you want to, my high priestess told us, if you want to actually clean a deck, and it's like one of the mass market decks or something like that, if you take generic white bread, you can rub the white bread, the soft white part, on the card to remove some of the goo and just the wear and tear.
I see Debbie Aquarius Owl, hello. And Robin's Reflections. I don't know if I missed her before. Well, the deck itself was not a problem. It was just the box being soiled or sticky and finding the sugar in there that creeped me out. And so I actually tossed the box. I didn't keep it.
Sure.
And I put the deck in another container, but something lingering there that we can get into in another prompt.
Well, and that's something. It's like when you buy a used car, you're going to always there's always going to be an adjustment to the energy of that deck or the car or whatever. And Ben had talked about he doesn't care. Well, Ben or Richie were saying they don't necessarily care about the box because they don't read the box.
Right.
So, and I'm also a person, we're talking about secondhand. I'm also a person, Robin, who, when it comes to buying a book, I'm okay with somebody's notes in the book because that just gives me an idea of who they are and what they were thinking about. I think it's just fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and Debbie said, one of the things I have noticed is people selling secondhand mass market decks at the same as retail price and then asking for shipping. I don't get it. I don't either.
No.
So.
There was just something about the soiling of this related to like bodily functions that isn't the same as someone who cares for their decks and sort of spiritual vibe being attached to it, but just knowing that somebody who's like unhygienic or whatever, passing that little bit of goo along to me. And so it's not really about cleaning. It's just like, it's an idea of it.
Yeah.
Not even that the deck itself or is anything wrong with it. It just has an ooh factor for me.
Yeah.
And had she noticed, that her hair had been in there and removed it, I'd be none the wiser. But it just was like that stray bit of fluff,
Yeah.
and careless.
Oh, gross.
Got into the
Gross.
box.
Yeah.
I also I've got used copies from Mendy. I have no issue with that. See, it's like people I trust and know and respect.
Exactly.
But some people you just feel like they don't even know maybe about tarot, and they're just like cashing in and getting rid of this stuff,
Yeah, and Robin's reflection said, I have better luck with trades. And say hi to Miss Charlotte, Jane. And Robin's reflections also said yes, because once you get into your head that it's gross, it's almost impossible to talk yourself out or talk yourself into using it.
Exactly.
And Maruda said, I do my best to wash my hands before use and put a cloth under my cards.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem with secondhand decks. And, I do. Yeah, price is an issue, but if I like something, it's like buying a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
Emma the Gray said, I like grimy cards as long as it's my grime.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to prompt number 2 so we can move it along a little bit. Kickstarter pre-orders FOMO. Now, for me, I mean, I'm not to tell anybody don't do Kickstarter, but I can't. It's not for me. I can't do it, and that goes with pre-orders too. I was tempted to do a Kickstart. No, it wasn't a Kickstarter. I did a couple of pre-orders because of FOMO, because it was pre-announced that they were going to be limited edition.
Sure.
Of 500 copies, and they were popular deck creators. And I thought, these are decks that I know I want, even though I haven't seen a walkthrough yet. I'm gauging my desire for them entirely on their previous artistic efforts and output. And if I don't pre-order, I might miss the chance on that. And I did. I had to wait months, and I was so anxious about it that I thought, I don't need to live with this stress. It's like, if it's popular enough and I'm quick enough on the draw, there should be a few little extra copies above and beyond the pre-orders. And if I get in there on the time right away and get it, great. And if I don't, that's too bad,
Yeah.
That's what, and I've also heard of Kickstarters where people put the money out there and then
wait and wait. Yeah.
Doesn't do
it. Benabel Wynn said, I like grimy cards as long as it's my grime. I love it. And FOMO, for those of you who do not know, which I didn't know when I first heard it, is the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Something that you hear about is going to go out of print. And I do Kickstarters. I mentioned this yesterday in Richie and Ben's live. I want to see all of the cards because I want to know that all of the cards are finished. That tells me there is a commitment by the creator to they've actually done their due diligence and they just want to get it published. So,
but the Kickstarters don't usually show you all the cards before it's.
They do.
They do?
It depends upon the Kickstarter campaign, and most of them, the ones that I like to back are the ones that will show us the pictures of the cards. Because if I'm picking if I want a deck, and in my mind, I have illustrated minors, and I get pip minors, then that's a disjoint. So,
yeah.
And Maruda said, too much uncertainty for me with Kickstarters and pre-orders. Now, that being said, I will pre-order. I will pre-order. I will pre-order 2 copies of it if I like it.
Oh,
Especially, I mean, you know, no question about it, because there's some people who, yeah, there's, yeah, I mean, if it's a creator that I like and I'm pleased, I will absolutely do pre-orders. Go ahead.
I bought as a pre-order the Lonely Dreamer Tarot because I love the paintings of Odilon Redon. And
Hmm.
it was announced during the pre-orders that it was going to be limited, I think, to 500 copies. And it was one where I thought, oh, if I don't pre-order it, I'm going to miss it out. And I really want this deck. So
Hmm.
I did get it. But what pissed the hell out of me is 3 months after I got it, she released a second edition with about
Uh-huh.
5 different cards.
Yeah.
And I was so upset because it was not a cheap deck. And
No.
when I got it, and I thought, if you had a notion you were going to change cards, why didn't you wait a little bit longer and do that? Or if you're going to do a second edition and change it, maybe don't rush it out in 3 months, because I feel like
Yeah.
you're ripping me off with the same money again so soon.
Well,
A year,
well,
release a second edition.
but
So
you are a deck creator, so you know, once you've released something into the wild, you want to make some changes to it.
yeah,
Um, I don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. I don't. I genuinely don't. Because great artists, they will paint the same painting multiple times.
yeah,
And there's nuances of each of them. It's like the spectra whirl.
mhm,
There are
yeah.
differences in both of them. I own both copies of it because, first of all, it was affordable. Second of all, I like it. It reads well. And third of all, I want to support the creator.
Yeah,
So
I
that,
don't have so much of an issue of them changing a deck. Hopefully, it's more than 4 or 5 cards that are different.
yeah,
But the thing is, I felt pressured into ordering this because it would not be
yeah,
available again. It was limited. And then she only waited 3 months. And then it's like, oh, the first one's no good now because I got a second one out with,
yeah,
better cards or whatever.
yeah,
And
different cards.
that's not the intention, probably. But in my head, it was like, she's ripping me off now. I got it. I got to order.
Well, and she called me and asked me if she should do this and piss you off, and I told her yes, Robin. No, but I understand that because one of the beauties of Kickstarter is that things that may never have seen the light of day do come out, and we do have an opportunity to have them. And then there are some creators who are fortunate enough to have them picked up
Yeah.
by a publisher. Kudos to them. And MA the Gray said, I only do Kickstarter now if it's someone I know I want to support. Otherwise, wait and see if I want to order after the deck comes out. If if that's not an option, so be it. I get that.
This reminds me of the ethereal visions. Remember the whole big business about
Hmm.
that? It was an indie deck, and then I believe people bought it and had to wait a while or something to get it, and the price was like kind of high, and then it got picked up mass market and it was cheaper, and people got really upset about that. Similar kind of issue. And I don't mind improved editions coming out, but I don't know why it is, but I feel like I'd have been happier if it had taken to the next year or the next summer
Yeah.
for the second edition to come out. The fact that it was only 3 months after swearing you're never going to get first edition again that it came out, it's too close a time. And it
Yeah.
really railed. And now I feel like when I use that deck, what am I missing? Because I don't have the
Oh,
cards from the second deck.
yeah.
And I actually didn't like the Fool card in that deck, and she fixed that in the second one. But I
Hmm.
don't want to give her the satisfaction of ordering the second deck. I feel like
Well, yeah.
the first one, she should give me the second one.
Oh my goodness. Well, there's some good stuff in the chat, and it's like
Yeah.
Maruda said, for instance, I'm glad I didn't pre-order the owl tarot because of the green and purple owls. So again, it goes back to that ability to see all of the cards. Robin's Reflection said, I do like pre-orders on Amazon, can really save a lot of money with that. And Kristen Louise said, I have a permanent feeling of guilt buying new decks. I don't know why. I just pre-ordered the Morgan Greer in a 10, or just ordered the Morgan Greer in a 10, and it took me days of feeling wrong about it first. And it's only $20. I'm weird. You're not weird, you're you. Benabel said, though, FYI, those first editions end up becoming very valuable later on, worth more than subsequent editions. Absolutely. Tarot Jackpot is on a no Kickstarter buying in 2023.
Hold on. I want to respond to Benabel. I agree with that. If you're collecting it as an investment, I'm not that person. I collect because of the content in the deck. So the value is sort of irrelevant to me. Now, I guess it might be more relevant if I fell out of love with a deck at some point in the future and wanted to get rid of it. The resale value would be up. But that's not something that I even consider when buying a deck. Ooh, I'm buying that because people will pay hundreds for it later.
Well,
you know?
And there are people who will buy 2 copies of something to keep one sealed. I get that. Okay, so I will do a pre-order, and FOMO is real. Oh, Benabel said makes sense. Thumbs up. FOMO for me is, fear of missing out. It is a real thing, and because what I've missed out on is I'm so much more drawn to than other editions of the deck. And I get it. I get it. But here's the thing. Here's what I've learned is if I don't look at Kickstarter, then I don't know what I'm missing out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't look at Kickstarter, so maybe that's a good thing for me. I look when I get the itch for a deck, I'll go on Amazon or Llewellyn's site or whatever. When they say coming soon or whatever, I'll take a peek at what's coming up. But usually I'll look on YouTube for flip throughs, or walkthroughs, and that's where I discover new decks that I might.
And to be honest with you, Robin, I'm not looking at coming soon stuff because you know what? If I never bought another tarot deck, I would be very happy. But again, it's like artwork. I consider these 78 little pieces of paper with beautiful art on them, filled with energy, and they can many times can trigger something to me that's quite beautiful.
Now here's three no. Tarot Jackpot says I'm on a no Kickstarter buying in 2023, and Deanne says I've been so lucky with Kickstarter, and Kristen Louise says I've never done a Kickstarter. Too much anxiety over it. So there you go, 3 different deals.
Well, and that's really important. What are you comfortable with doing? I mean, because I have that just makes sense. So, but FOMO is a real thing, and it's a give and take. What am I worth missing out on? And am I going to be, where does it fall in the big picture of things? Benabel added something. Me too, Toadstool, which means by the time I found out about a deck, it's already out there in the world. I'm never the first to hear about a deck. Yep.
Well, that comes to my number 3 prompt: market saturation or scarcity. One of the things that keeps me from buying a deck, this is crazy psychology, but I love it when I find a deck nobody else knows about, and it's a treasure for me, and I get to spread the passion and joy and excitement about it. If I've seen 35 walkthroughs of a deck and everybody's talking about it, it feels like the market has been saturated with that deck. And why do I want it and to talk about it yet again? I've already heard enough about it, like rerun anxiety or something. So I do find if a deck is super popular, it really has to resonate with me to want it, because I almost feel like I'm getting more exposure to it than I need from everybody else out there that's buying it.
Yeah. I'm a similar way. It's the Light Seers deck by Chris Ann. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody loved it, and it's just in my nature that if everybody loves it, I'm not interested in it. If everybody tells me I should do something, I'm certainly not going to do it. I did that with the Harry Potter books. I read the first two, working in a library. Everybody told me I should. I didn't. I have read them later, and I'm glad I did. But and I do own a copy of the mass market Light Seers, and I'm glad I have it. But there is a lot of market saturation. So, and if something is scarce, and I'm fortunate enough to have it, Rob and I am oftentimes doing a flip through because I want people to know what's there.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like if it's I'm drawn more to indie decks than mass market anyway, but if I feel like there's an indie deck creator out there that needs a little boost or little push or little help to spread the word because I really like their deck, I'm more apt to want to do that than say, hey, I belong to the club of, Light Seers or whatever deck you might say. There's a sense there too, an excitement of community where you're with like-minded people that all like the same deck. That's cool too, but it's mostly not me. I mean, I'm a loner and a hermit, and I like my little special, my precious, my little.
Yes. Yeah, we can all see Robin doing that now. Yes. And Tarot Jackpot said a secret deck that no one knows about. I love it.
Yeah.
So and I understand that. And I'm glad that people, I want to be very clear about this. I love it, and I really enjoy it when people are excited about the decks that they've added to their collection. I like seeing people use it. That's the other thing that I like. I like to see a deck in use. How does it read?
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is I also think scarcity is a thing, and I've done that. My expensive decks, my two really expensive decks, are because of scarcity. Did you see what Benabel said? It's down at the bottom.
No, we skipped some people, so I didn't.
Okay.
That's so kind. I know those indie creators totally love you for that. Thank you. I'm few and far between in that regard, but I'm sure there are.
That's one thing that I also love is the idea of an indie creator. For me, the decks, Gerald's going to get on his soapbox. Decks are a tool for me. They're part of my magical working, and I have always been taught to never bargain for magical tools. So if we've talked about wands, you have wands, and I never want to barter, I'll barter for a tool, but I won't bargain for, this is $60. Will you take 30 for it? No.
That's back to the price issue. For me, if I wanted it enough, the price is no issue. I'm not in a place where I need to save or scrimp or a budget for it. Happily, blessedly, I know a lot of people are, but that's never been an issue for me. And I don't usually put things on wish lists or wait for it,
Sure.
I save up my money. It's like I know instantly when I see something, either I can wait or I have to have that now.
Yeah.
And more often than not, if I feel like I can wait, I drift away from it, and I don't.
Yeah. That's the great thing about keeping it in a cart and not purchasing it immediately. I will do that on my phone. I have a whole bunch of windows open of decks and websites that people have talked about, and if I go back 2 or 3 days later and I'm like, yeah, okay, It's nice, but I'm not drawn to it.
I have a thing now where if I see a deck that, ooh, I really like that, I instantly go and look at a walkthrough. And then I think, okay, let me look at the availability and the price, and then put it on the back burner overnight, sleep on it.
Oh, absolutely.
If I find myself like with tremendous urges to go back and look at the flip through again, a second or a third time in very short span, like the same night or the next day,
yes,
I think, okay, press the buy button because you're being pulled back again and again.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There's a lot of comments in here. Like Matt Green, I got one of his decks secondhand, and now I'm backing his current deck. Sometimes I go with a new person like Sarah Kathleen, and I just get a feel by reading through the plan. That's Deanne. Rob, reflections. Yeah, that happened to me with Light Seers. I love it so much, but I'm so tired of looking at it that I hardly ever use it anymore. Tarot Jackpot, I felt this way with Moonology decks, saw it everywhere, only just got it now secondhand and cheap too, and I love it because I now see no one using it. Yeah, if it falls out of the limelight, you can come to appreciate it more. Popular or not, Maruta says, I only buy a deck if it appeals to me visually, energetically, and viscerally. MA, I recently backed a Kickstarter that and caught myself hoping it would get funded, but just barely, so it could be my secret deck.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kristen Louise has found a deck on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So.
Let's see.
But you know, everybody has their own way. I think what's important is you know your tastes and your process and your budget. I think those are really important, because if you don't know those, then you know you're out of limits. So
I feel like we're racing along. So take a deep breath. We'll try to slow ourselves down. We got time. I don't know if you're going anywhere, but if you have to leave, you have to leave. Take a sip, everybody.
Yeah, there you go. Sip.
You're so passionate talking about these things.
Oh, Lisa is to receive Terror of the Abyss today. It's 70% off via Etsy.
Okay.
That's exciting.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. Number 4. Packaging, boxes, bags, shrink wrap, banding. Now, what I mean by banding is you know how you open those decks and inside there's a little band around it? Used to have, I think, plastic bands or and they switched to paper, which I'm thrilled about. I'm actually kind of more in favor of decks that are released packaged well but don't have shrink wrap. But that's very rare. Not too often do they do that. There are different kinds of boxes that I'm drawn to. There are some that are cleverly a flat sheet that folds and inserts, but just doesn't feel, it's very artistic. It doesn't feel secure to me. I'm not crazy about those. A lot of times when I get a deck in a tuck box, I will take it out of there and put it in a generic tin or a bag.
Sure.
If it's sometimes they go back in the tuck box. I don't like a lot of wear and tear on my tuck boxes. So if I'm going to be using it, say in the next 2 weeks or next short period, I'll put it in something I have quick, easy access to that I don't tear or wear. And if I am not using it for weeks or months at a time, I'll put it back in the tuck box and store it on the shelf.
Yeah.
But there's different kind of boxes I like. I'm particularly partial now to 2-part boxes where the top lifts off. They feel secure. They look nice. They're really accessible for me. I'm not a fan of tuck boxes. here's a case where it's a mini deck. It's like a linen box. That's one of those lift-off ones. But
Mm-hmm.
this one doesn't have a little
Oh,
thumb.
a little place for the thumb. Yeah.
Means if you once you take the cards out that have weight to them, don't put the lid back on because you're going to
Yep.
have a hard time getting it open again. So those are two considerations for something like that. But I like those. There are these beautiful ones that like lift out of the bottom. I think they look great on a shelf. They don't feel practical to me when gravity just slips the cards right out the bottom when you go to lift it up.
I agree with you on that.
I'm not fond of that. I love the ones that come in like a magnet, book like
Yes.
magnet enclosure. But I'm kind of moving away from those too. Somehow, even just the simple clasp and flap, it feels like an extra bit of something you don't need and an extra step that I don't want, which is crazy because it's not much of a step. The Llewellyn boxes are big boxes that are beautiful, but it feels like they've given more consideration to the boxes and the guidebook inside than they have the deck itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have real estate for those anymore. And yet I feel guilty about throwing away the box. I'll keep the book on one shelf and a little thing of the cards somewhere else, and the box gets tossed.
Yeah. And there are people who, and I think Deanne, Blue Crescent Tarot, has done this. You can use the box, you can cut it up and use it in journaling.
Yeah.
I've done that. I am a person who I prefer. I like the hard boxes with the thumbs, and a lot of people who will take stuff out of the boxes. I'm not a tuck box person. They're just hard to open for me. Some people immediately put them into a bag.
Yeah.
It's like copies of decks. If I have a bag for it, I want the box to be able to fit in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I use bags a lot, but I need them to be snug enough for the cards not to flip around in there.
Yes.
So they don't get creased or bent, but also not so snug I have to struggle to get it in and out of the bag.
Yes.
And I'm terrible. I can see right now from where I am, I must have 8 or 10 empty tuck boxes in the cubby on the side of a shelf that I could have stored my cards in on that shelf, because I'm just storing empty boxes now that are in bags or tins elsewhere, because I'm afraid to throw those boxes away, because at some point I might fall out of favor with those decks and want to pass them on. And I don't know if somebody's going to want them without the box.
Yeah, it'll certainly impact the price that you can get. I do have some bags for decks that are great, but as I said, if it comes in a hard box, I want the cards to stay in that hard box, and I want to put that hard box in a bag sometimes. Hard boxes stay very nice on the shelves. I'm not a fan of shrink wrap. There's the environment. I get that it needs to be there. The idea of banding, the only thing that I have had with issues with banding is I will get, believe it or not, I'll get too excited and I won't slide it off. I'll actually pull it off, and I will I'll do some slight damage to the cards that's easily fixed.
I just usually tear it. I tear it open and toss it.
Yeah.
But I don't save the band once it's off. They're usually
I don't save the band either. Yeah.
Paper bands. I was going to say, and people create these pouches, these tarot pouches, and the ones I love the best, you can actually unfurl, and the extra area can be laid out flat as a spread cloth. I love those when there's enough flip over for 3-card or 5-card spreads, which I like to do. Now, is that a Kelly Bear?
This is a Kelly Bear pouch, and what I appreciate about it is it fits the tuck box in there. And I know what you mean. It's nice to sometimes have the practicality and the usability of a bag that will fold out to where you can lay the cards on it. Yeah, I get that.
Now, one thing, I love Kelly Bear's pouches. Two things I have a little issue with. One of them, for me, they're all made out of felt, which has a beautiful quality, but mine are not wearing very well with time. They get dirty very easy, and the mat.
Well, if you wash your hands, Robin, you wouldn't have that problem.
No, it's not that. It's the dust in my apartment, so I should dust more often. But
you should have somebody come in.
Also, if you handle them and rub them, you know, the felt kind of, it doesn't pill, but it kind of, you know what I mean? It sort of disintegrates with rubbing or handling.
I think I've not had any problems with that.
Okay. So. Also, she puts a ribbon on it that wraps around about 6 times, it feels like. And sometimes I just don't have the patience for that. But, you know.
It's anticipation. It's edging you, Robin.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Oh, anybody have any comments on boxes, bags, shrink wrap? Oh, shrink wrap. It's one thing to shrink wrap the box, but do we really need the deck inside the box also shrink wrapped? When I think about the mountains of plastic shrink wrap from tarot community, it makes me a little nuts.
Can you make Blue Crescent Tarot a mod so she can link Kelly Bear's Etsy store?
Oh, I'd have to go into I don't think I can do it from StreamYard. I think I have to go into YouTube. So let me find our, here we go.
So I will say, I get the idea of shrink wrap as a production thing to keep cards together. I get it. And so I just try to recycle and not use that as much. And Emma the Gray said, I'll put it in, but you know, mods are good.
Do I do managing moderator or standard operator? I don't know what the difference is.
I would trust her to do managing.
Yeah. Okay. Should be now. I usually have the tab, the YouTube tab open, but I get too confused going back and forth.
Yeah.
And I never get the sound off in time.
Well, and there is a thing, you know, the packaging is important. Is it oak, ash, and ember, oak, ash, and thorn?
Yeah.
The creator there, it is important for them to have post-consumer recycled packaging, and I'm all for that. I'm completely all for that. So, I mean, my post-it notes, my sticky notes are made from recycled material. So I'm all for that. So, and Emma the Gray put it in there. Thanks, Emma the Gray.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, let me jump to the next one.
Yeah, Kristen Louise, Kelly Bear, when she puts stuff out, they're popular, and they're reasonably priced.
The next one is card size. Now, just to refocus, so people that came in later know what we're talking about. These are qualities that decks have that either keep us from buying them or keep us from reaching for them to use them, or things that make us reach for them to use them and enjoy them because we like that aspect about them. And for me, my fussiness has siphoned down into a particular area, and card size is real important. Actually, all the tactile aspects of a card, which will also come up in a later prompt, are extremely important to me at this stage of my collecting. And I love small cards, but not the teeny weeny ones. Now, I showed you before these minis, and yes, that too, that's bigger, but that's small too. I like something that's basically bridge size or close to that.
Oh yes,
I steer away. If I see something as larger than a tarot size card, I,
Okay.
I won't go near it. Our oracle cards, all that stuff, no, not for me. I mean, I will never say never. If I am so in love with a deck that I
Yeah.
have to have it for the imagery,
Mhm.
might get it, but initially it's that aspect that alone will keep me from buying a
Yeah.
deck. And I love, I mean, this is my latest sort of ideal deck. It's the vintage blonde old fella, which is done after the Keishobu Japanese deck. And
Mhm.
that the Keishobu is on horrible cardstock, and I want to say it's large size cards, but I don't think it is. It's just that the cardstock is so awful for me. These, I love the cards, and the size is just, oh, it fits in my hand so nice. It feels so good to shuffle.
Sure. Yeah.
My open face tarot from, make playing cards. I have regular tarot and the mini. I love the mini. I almost
Mhm.
never use the oversized one except to
The
hold up,
regular. Yeah.
put it on the screen for people
Mhm.
to see. So this is something that's happening to me. It's like I'm hoping for deck creators out there to start creating more bridge size decks. I think I only
Uh-huh.
have this one and this one and,
Mhm.
and the Spectra Whirl and the
Mhm.
Sarabito, Sarabito,
Sasarabito.
Sarabito.
Yeah, the traveler.
But that's really not quite that small. It's
Yeah. It's a
narrow,
little taller. It's narrower.
but that's a
Yeah.
good size. It's a good size,
Mhm.
I think. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that love, the bigger the cards, the better. Now, it's one thing if you need a larger card to see the imagery, but then I'd say maybe the deck creator should consider their imagery, when they go to create a deck. And
Sure.
if it's more about that detailed artwork, maybe you buy a print or a painting rather than make a card out of it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think for me, card size does matter. And because my first personal tarot deck was the inner child cards, and they're oversized. And what I liked about that, Robin, was it forces one to think about what they're doing because it's such an oversized. They have to think about shuffling, so
Mhm.
it concentrates the energy on that. And so I like that. Um, and we'll get to the card stock and stuff like that. But I'm okay with a variety of sizes.
That deck was a deck I didn't buy simply because the cards were too big for me.
There you go. And
And
and you know that, so that's perfect.
it needs to feel right in my hands to
Yep.
handle. When I see an oversized deck, my mind immediately goes to, okay, you can't shuffle this. Maybe just stick your hand in and pull a card. And maybe
Yeah.
this deck is better for single pulls to meditate on than it is for spreads or something.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's just the way I relate to them.
Yeah. I understand that.
I don't want to see if we miss anything before we go on. And you like all card sizes, right?
I'm okay with the variety of card sizes. Yes. And in fact, I don't see it here. Is it the alchemical tarot, the really large one, the Jungian based? And that one's big because that's really a card that's the deck is meant to be looked at and delved into. And so that's not one I'm going to use just like a tarot, like a regular reading.
I saw a
So,
note and I highlighted the wrong note. Oh, here. Uh, oh, so Deanne mentions this tarot. Ari Wisner's indie decks are also
yes,
permanent. That made
I
me
like that.
prompt that I didn't put in here, which is shape of a card or shape of a deck.
Oh,
Now I have this Ari Wisner deck. They're
yep.
square cards, and It's odd. I'm not fond of square cards. Or what's the deck that looks like pill capsule shaped? There's one with red backs.
Yeah, I think it's the one that Kristen Louise is talking about. It's the narrow antique deck. I'll be honest with you. I'm okay with different types and card sizes. Yes, they're hard to shuffle, but I find them curious.
Circular decks, octagonal decks. I love the novelty of it and the idea, but
Oh, the luminous void, which is narrow with the round, and yeah, it's pill shaped.
Like a pill.
Yeah, yeah, that one. Yeah, it's not the shape of the cards that I have issue with on that one.
Okay.
So. But I'm good for an odd shaped deck if it works for the cards, I should say. If it works for the way the cards are set up.
Okay. Oh, we've gone longer than I thought we were going to go with this, but we've been real chatty.
Well, and the people in the chat are making great comments, and I appreciate that. So yeah,
I prefer decks that are easy to riffle, but if I love a big deck, I will use the side shuffle. It sounds like a little nuts.
Yeah, sounds like side shuffle. Yeah, yeah. I was actually just shuffling my 2-penny oracle yesterday, and it's round. I purchased it round, so because I think it's fun. It's curious, but I'm an adventurous sort of guy, and I'll when I'm doing a reading for somebody, full blown reading, I'll use 3 or 4 decks and different sizes and shapes. It's fun.
And Lisa Niedermeyer's here, and she says, I can't handle the circular decks. And I had a circular deck of playing cards when I was a kid. And I'm the kind of person that occasionally drops a card. And I know darn well if I drop a circular card, it's going to roll somewhere that I can't get out of, and that's the end of the deck. I won't be able to. So when you have a circular deck, how do you deal with reversals? There's no such thing as a reversal, or every card has some degree of reversal depending on how it comes up?
The answer to all of those questions is yes.
Yeah.
And it's it's like I typically don't read reversals, not consciously, but I just know the aspect of the meaning of the card. So
number 6, cardstock, thickness, flexibility, matte, texture, coating. These are part of the tactile thing that's important to me.
Yep.
I need a deck that's not too thick, particularly like the smaller they are, the thicker they are. I can't, like the original pocket version of Mildred Payne's Pocket Oracle. Was very difficult because it kept adding extra cards to the decks as expansion packs, and the thing got so thick I couldn't shuffle it really. So I would have to kind of put them in a bag and draw them out or something. And it's just like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Thickness, I don't like thick cards, and a lot of people these days love them. They like the thicker the better. For me, I like playing card stock. I like U.S. game stock. I like Llewellyn. I like Louis Scarabeo. But this new trend in cards that are thicker and more cardboardy and matte and feel like they're less flexible is not for me. Texture, I like linen texture, and I like that kind of cards that have a sort of a sheen to them, but not overly shiny. But that's in the coating, I think. But I also do sometimes really enjoy glossy cards, unless the gloss is making the cards stick and clump together, or show the fingerprints so much that I'm distracted from the image because I'm looking at my fingerprints on the cards.
Yeah, and I glossy cards, they don't shuffle well for me. And for instance, this I have a hard time using it on a video.
Which deck is that?
This is the Fool's Items Oracle, or and it's the Fool's Item Oracle. It's just Jeffrey bought it for me, or got it from a Kickstarter. And there's also a mini version, which is a flat finish. People have said, Emma the Grey said, I have circular oracle, not tarot. Edges are, Maruda said, the thing is that bothers me is when the edges are sharp and hurt my fingers. So thick, stiff cards are unusable for Maruda.
Venable says, can't remember the name, but I have a circular deck that has a dot on the border to let you know upright or reverse, which I think is great. However, it still means you got to twist your deck around when you draw it for that to line it up right.
Yeah. I want the cards to be shuffleable. I do riffle shuffle. There's some publishers who they have changed the cardstock over the time that they've been around, but the first couple of decks were like, the cards were made out of cereal box cardboard, and I'm like, I want to have none of that. I used to like rose petal, but then there was rose petal, so rose petally that it was sticky, unshuffleable. I have a Kickstarter deck that's like that I'm like going, oh, it's too sticky. I'm a huge fan of linen, the Sassorabito Tiny Traveler, the Madame Clara cards I really like. Those could be a little thicker, but I love the finish of those. And you know, for those of you who saw, you know, the Radical Abundance live that I did with Jamie, Deck Casual, I love this. It's a thick, it's easy, it's shuffleable. So
this is about the maximum thickness I like in a deck. I don't like them, you know, twice that thick. And this is one I bought that I actually don't like the cardstock. When you said cereal box, that's what I thought of when I got it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. This came from I think maybe Turkey or somewhere in the Middle East. And I think it's called something like the Rare Tarot of the Animal Lords or something. And I'm not really sure if it was legitimately reissued. I had never seen it before, and found out it was an old Los Scarabeo deck that they removed the multiple languages on, which you'd think I'd like. And it's a anthropomorphized animal deck, but some people don't like that. But I don't like the cardstock, and it's not glossy, but it's just kind of, it reminds me of cereal box, and I don't know why. It might be bootleg. I have no idea. It's just something about the cardstock I don't care for.
Yeah, so I am particular about it, and if a card, like you, for me, reading using cards is a tactile experience, which oftentimes will get me in a spiritual and an openness, and really connect me with the messages. That will also help me access what I've read in the books associated with it. So there's this. And so if it's not a pleasure to shuffle, I don't like it. So I want it flexible. I like a matte. I really like a linen. And it can't be high gloss. I'm like, yeah.
I prefer most a sheen to the deck, a sort of a subtle sheen, and I like them, you know, slippery, but not so much that we get a lot of jumpers. You know, I don't want them jumping out of my hands, but I want that luxurious glide feel when I'm handling a deck.
Oh my gosh, Jeffrey! Somebody gave Jeffrey a plastic tarot deck. It's an RWS something like that, and he handed it to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, can I shuffle it? And I shuffled it, and the cards just exploded and went everywhere, and it's just like, oh my gosh. So
There was
But
that whole series, was it Iris Fang, or I don't remember her name. She did a series of RWS ones in plastic, and good Lord, they were gorgeous. They were like metallic gold. They kind of looked like brocade. They were so beautiful, like facets within the texture of the card caught the light, so it was just like amazing. But they were so slippery. It was like the whole swimmers diving team of cards slipping out of your hands at every turn. And but I do have, I mean, I think even one or two of my decks are available on plastic, and they're not as slippery. So even within a certain kind of card, there's still degrees of usability.
Yeah. Robin's reflection said, linen is so nice, but does anyone else find that the images wear off of linen after a while? I've had some about the corners, but I'm okay with that.
I haven't noticed that. However, I've noticed on this deck that I say is sort of my current favorite that I love, the edge on it feels almost textured because of the linen stock. Like it's not like a perfectly even slick edge. It almost has a linen texture, which I'm sort of worried is going to wear or fray over time. I don't know if there's actually linen in these cards, or if they just have a textured linen impression. But
Well, and here's the other thing about that, Robin, is looking at those. When I have a deck that all of these things work for me, I like shuffling it. It's satisfying to me. And you know, when I do finally open a deck that I've had for 25 months and I start playing with it and it's comfortable to shuffle, then kudos, it works.
It's amazing to me how important these things are. Regardless of the content, the theme, whatever's going on in the imagery of the deck, just the idea of how it feels in your hand, and that tactile thing, you can get an emotional response from that.
Absolutely.
Touch.
Well, and that's the thing, and I had mentioned this yesterday in Longman Tarot and Beneficial Tarot's live, is, as you know, sure, I probably have a deck or two in me trying to get out, but you know, how do you make that deck? I have to be willing to make the deck that I want to create, and then be able to let the criticism roll off of me. And that's a challenge, because I want everybody to be happy and put it on make playing card, whatever, and have, make everybody, you can get it this size, you can get it that size, you can get it on linen, you can get it on super shiny, you can get it on plastic. And I'm just like, it gets overwhelming. So deck creators who are watching this or who will watch it, thank you for doing what you do. And you're never going to make everybody happy.
True. So, I mean, when I did the open face, I got a lot of support initially from Masha in Australia. Masha's Musings,
I believe.
I haven't seen any of her walkthroughs in a while, but she requested that I offer a plastic version of my deck, and I did it just for her. I didn't intend to. And I think as long as she wanted it that way, because she reads on the beach a lot.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Wanted to protect it, and, from water damage and sand or whatever. So she was happy with it. I did it on plastic, and I just ordered myself a copy, and I discovered a slight difference in the coloring that I didn't like. They're white cards with sepia tone drawings, and the white wasn't exactly ivory. It has almost a green tinge to it. Very subtle, but enough that I didn't like it as well as the paper version. But she was thrilled with it. And after that, I did my little Norman deck on linen and plastic. And that one looks perfect on plastic. The colors are great, and it doesn't, it's not overly slippery. Some plastic ones are very slippery and some aren't, and I don't know what the difference is, but
Yeah. Hi, Lisa Rhodes.
Yeah, Kristen says, yeah, it sucks. I did my Oracle deck, poured so much time into it, and it practically bombed. Still haven't gotten a payout for it.
Well, I don't know how Make Playing Cards works, but I do know when you put a deck out, the market is so saturated. There's got to be you got to be talking about it always,
Well,
and
how it
doing
works,
readings with it.
they have $100 minimum limit before they'll send you a check. And then I'm not sure. In other words, it's not just the price they're selling the deck for, but you have to make of your cut, I believe it's over $100 before they'll send you a payment. And it took me over more than a year before I got a payment on even my first deck, and I have like 4 or 5 of them on there.
Yeah. Maruda said, I don't know if you noticed my tip. You can clean dust off of felt with a toothbrush.
Okay. But then doesn't the friction of the brush separate the...
Well, you're not going to be going like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you shouldn't, but...
I would bet that masking tape would probably lift off dirt as well.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Lisa asked, what's your opinion about waterproof RWS decks? Slippery? Yes.
Yes and no. I've seen, I don't know if she's talking about a specific one. I have one that, like I said, is very slippery, and another one that has texture to it that's not as slippery. And I have plastic decks like my little Norman that aren't slippery. So I think it's a case by case thing. And that's one of those things that we rely on people who do walkthroughs to talk about. And even then, even them talking about it doesn't always work. Like we can receive one that we're more critical of than the reviewer was.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump on to number 7. We have 11 of these, and I want to
trying to manage my chat.
Copyright fonts and borders. Now, for me, I pretty much stopped buying US games cards because even though they wised up to people disliking copyrights and they hid them on the backs of the cards, if you look, you can still find them or still see them, and I just don't like it. So I really have to love a deck enough to be able to look past it in order to buy a deck from them anymore. I won't do it. As terms of fonts, I need a font that's legible. I'm not real fussy about what the font is as long as it's big and clean enough and easy to read. I don't want it blending in with what's behind it. If it's not in its own little band and it's right on top of the artwork, there needs to be enough contrast that I can clearly read it. And borders, some decks I love borders on, and others I love the image going right to the edge. It's not consistent. It depends on the deck.
I'm not bothered as much by copyright. I do understand that, but when a copyright is huge, that can be bothersome. But I'm reading more than just the copyright. So if it's that one little detail, I mean, like going, okay, don't buy the deck. But I'm okay with that. A font matters. Font needs to be clear. It needs to be the right color. It's like closed captions. They're in white, and you're doing a cooking show where all of the people are wearing white. You can't see them. You can't see the, that. So that matters. And yes, some things, sometimes people get confused when they try to, on a card, use, and this is just Gerald, this is for entertainment purposes only. Sometimes when you mix fonts, it's really confusing. And so it's like even in thumbnails for so it needs to be clear, it needs to be readable, sometimes I want to be able to read it with my glasses on, but I don't want to have to pull it up or get a magnifying glass. Borders, I'm okay with borders if it works for the images and the cards. Like with the wildwood, I've cut the borders off of those because that works for me. I also like the borders on the Santa Muerte, where it's half a border down below. I mean, I could show you that.
Yeah, I don't like the Santa Muerte because it's like a scoop border. It's like a little
See, and I like that. I like this. And this is where I wish that the sides would work better. So I appreciate that. We can see it. And so, but that's just me.
That looks like some kind of hardware, like in the old Dewey Decimal System in the library, and the trays that have, the wooden ones.
Yeah, yeah, the card catalogs.
Yeah, the card catalogs. They usually had a little brass plate on the front that had a thing that you slide a card in.
Yep.
And so that's what that reminds me of. And for some reason, I just don't like those scoop borders on that deck.
Well, and that's part of it. Is it depends. The Spirit Keeper's Tarot is nice because what's in there is part of the image. Kristen Louise said, I detest the borders on the Druid craft. I won't get it because of how ugly I find them. I cut mine off.
Yeah.
And that's a thing, I don't mind altering an image.
Kristen mentions how important fonts are to her, and I just want to say I haven't bought her deck for other reasons, but I love her font. The fonts on her cards is beautiful. I just love it. And it goes very well thematically with the kinds of cards that she's doing.
And I get the lovely, beautiful, heavy, hardcore script, but they're hard sometimes. And I'm not talking about Kristen's deck. Sometimes they're hard to read. Same thing with a guidebook. I want to be able to read the guidebook.
Yeah, sometimes people get too artsy with the fonts, like these ones that's like cursive writing and it's very thin. And it's like, well, yes, it looks dainty and fancy, but, it needs to be practicable. You need to be able to see.
Practical, yes.
Practical.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and it's like, and I have the same reaction, Robin, of online, like websites. Narrow fonts that are light colored on a white background, I can't read. So anyhow, there's that.
Yeah. I would say of these three things, well, no, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say of these three things, copyright's most likely to keep me from a deck, but I never skip that.
You heard it here first. Skipping it, people.
Number 8, modifying, trimming, gilding, and edging. Okay, this is a big bugaboo for me, but I'm not sure why.
I'll do all of those.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll do all of those because it's my deck. I own it, and it's if I find the borders don't work for me, I'll cut the borders off. If I want to edge it, it's an opportunity for me to connect with the deck. And there was a deck that I have moved on to somebody that I tried to work with, and I trimmed it, I edged it, and I still could not connect with it. So I found another home for it. Yeah. So, but I will modify it. And one of the things that I would love to do is I would love to create a tarot deck or a deck that is meant to be modified. I have 2 or 3 borders and easily trimmed, but gilding has to be flexible and stays on. So anyhow, what's going on with you for these?
I have modified a few decks, but mostly at the prompting of other people. And I have to say that once I do it, I don't reach for those decks anymore.
Wow.
There's something about it. For one thing, when I trim a deck, I'm not the best trimmer. And they're good enough, I think, but I feel like I've bastardized the artist's intent or changed it or something. And
Okay.
even though I know it's meant for me to make it easier for me to use, it feels like if I didn't like that, why did I buy the deck to begin with? They intended it a certain way, and I'm going against their wishes just to bend it to my will.
Okay.
On the other hand, I have rounded corners on a couple of decks that somehow I don't have an issue with. Those were made so I could work with them better. I had sharp corners. I rounded them off. I love those decks now. So there's no consistency there for me. In terms of edging, I never edge decks because I tried it once and made a mess of it. And also, I don't have an issue with bare edges. Now, if I had a preference, I would like the creators of the decks or the publishers to edge the edges in a nice matte color. But then you get into the issue of, well, what color do you want? And is somebody else going to like that color or not? So, and then as far as gilding, it's sort of the same thing. I think gilding, a lot of people crave gilding. And I felt like it was a novelty that some decks warranted and others didn't. They just cashed in because throw a little glitter on it, throw a few rhinestones on it. It'll sell better. People love that shit, you know, and it's just, I have a couple of decks that are gilded that I think are exquisite. One of them is the Cat Black Golden Tarot, because it feels to me like old masterpiece paintings in a museum in a gilded frame. And they're highly glossy too, in the version that I have. And most paintings, I don't know if it's the oil and the oil paint or are covered in a varnish to protect them, but it just has a rich feel to it. But then there are other decks that are like sort of everyday use decks that have gilding on it. And I think this is just kind of a, you know, nothing special deck. Why does it deserve gilding on it? And sometimes the gilding is hard on your skin and other times it's not. And like you said, sometimes it flakes off. So I just think gilding's overrated and overused. And for me, it needs to deserve a gilding. Don't just throw it at me just because, oh, I think it'll sell more if it's got gilding on it, you know, or maybe they won't like the cards, but if I put gilding on them, they'll sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's also, there have been some recent decks that I have where the edges are a flat color and not gilded, and that works for me. So, but I understand what you're saying.
Maruda says gilding can be sticky and interfere with shuffling. It's pretty, but not practical to me. Did we miss anything else?
I love the robin's reflections, lightning in the background going, "Wah, borders be gone."
Kristen, I love this. I can't even paint my nails, let alone edge a deck clearly.
Love that.
It says, I know my limits and won't trim, gild, or edge the deck.
There you go. That's good. And see, and that's the thing. I mean, and there's some really wonderful people who have done deck mod videos, and the right equipment. You need a really good guillotine to help to keep it straight. So yep.
I can see both sides of the argument about modifying. I often wonder how deck creators feel about it. Most of them claim that they don't care once it's your deck. But I wonder, you know, in the creation of a deck, everybody takes a lot of thought and consideration into getting it right. And if they've gotten it wrong at that point, I wonder if they feel a little hurt or slighted that
I don't know.
People, you know.
Yeah.
Let's go to number 9.
Number 9?
I hope I'm not rubbing everybody the wrong way. You should be used to it by now. You know what a curmudgeon I am. And I'm just as passionate about the things I like as the things that, you know, bug the crap out of me. Number 9, content. Finally, we're getting to, what the tarot is mostly about: content, theme, style, medium, and color palette. Oof, I'll let you start off with this one.
I'm going to. I have learned over the last years of certain themes that I appreciate and that I like. I like clear images. I like layered images. I like a collage deck. I like hand-drawn decks, photographic. So it just depends upon what the theme of the deck is, and if it's consistent across the deck. I get weirded out when it's like there's 2 or 3 cards that stick out because they're done in a different style. I'm not sure with that. So and it's yeah. So I do pay attention to all those. Don't ask me to explain all of them, because sometimes it's when I come across a deck, it's like the Handle Tarot. I saw that 15, 20 years ago, or when it first came out. I was really, really attracted to it. And so I purchased it. I haven't used it a lot, but I really like the images. They're comforting to me. They feel good. So,
Yes.
and we talked about the Deviant Moon and the paradoxical editions, and what I appreciate about that, and I said it during our live when we talked about it, is I like how the images, the colors were curated, and that's important to me. I want that color plays an important part. So
Yeah. That's a deck that I initially loved because, and another one where I bought because it was limited edition, claimed never to be reissued, which it hasn't so far. But after living with it for a while, I found I wasn't using it, and I was going to resell it. And then I got to thinking about it. Would I miss it if I got rid of it? And I'm not sure, because tastes do change over time.
yep.
So I'm just holding on to it and may not use it till who knows when.
Yeah.
But I still have it. I kept it. When it comes to themes, I think they generally work best if that's something you're really gung ho about, like those I forget the name of the label that releases the decks based on theme shows and movies and stuff.
Oh,
If you're into that thing, if you're that big a fan of something and you want it or need it, go for it. But it's like,
yeah.
mostly it's not my thing. Like, people love cat decks. I'm not a cat fancier, so I don't buy cat decks, although I have a couple of them. Not to say one of them I never use. The other one I use because it's so abstract that I love the abstract imagery in it.
Yeah.
Seasonal decks is another thing. I bought a handful of like Halloween decks, and I feel weird about using them when it's not Halloween, the same way I would with the Christmas deck, the winter weight, the idea of my using it in the summer,
Oh.
like, I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't know why. Shouldn't matter, but so those kind of decks I tend usually to steer away from, unless in the moment I really feel like I need that comfort for this season.
Yeah.
This thing I'm feeling around that theme.
Well,
Style.
I'll use a deck anytime.
I love stylized imagery and art, and I find a lot of decks, and this goes to do with medium. A lot of decks these days are watercolor designs, and
Okay.
I'm not a major fan of watercolors. But then again, like I said, I'm not a big cat fan, but I got a cat deck I love. I'm not a big watercolor fan, yet I've got the Maraloon is one of my top favorite decks, and it's watercolors.
Yeah.
So there's not fast and hard rules to these things. It's just I think when it's too much of a trend, I want like some variety or something different.
Oh,
And
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I like I like decks where the art is stylized. It doesn't have to perfectly recapture the human form. It can be a sort of an abstract version of a human form, and I appreciate it all the more for that than, say, an academic rendering. Color palette, that's becoming more important to me lately. That kind of goes back to the tactile sense of the deck. It's a feeling I get when I handle a deck like this one I just got a month or so ago, this cat tarot. It's mostly oranges, yellows on black backgrounds, and there's something warm about the oranges and yellows that
Sure.
my eyes feel a sort of a tactile sense or embrace or joy of using that deck because of the color palette. And for me, colors in that are just as important, if not more so, than the imagery. And I've seen decks where I like the artwork, but the color the Morgan Greer is a perfect example. The Morgan Greer looks like a perfectly wonderful deck, but there's something a little off on the hues of it that I don't like. Like the reds are more like a burgundy red to me that I don't like. The greens are more of a forest green or something. I don't usually like reds and greens together unless they're more acidic, like if it's a yellow green and a tomatoey red, But it's certain palettes and combinations that kind of keep me from being drawn to a deck.
Yeah.
Did you answer that about color palette or medium? You like all?
Did.
You like them all?
Yeah, I'm open to it. I just want I want it to work well together. So, and you've got Robin's reflection said, "OMG, my obsession with cat decks is just plain old, unhealthy." So Scott Scorpio Sun Tarot is here.
Yeah, it's funny. Now that I think about it, one of my old favorite decks is the Everyday Witch Tarot. And I don't think of it as a cat deck, but every single card has a cat in it or on it. And there are cats on the backs. So that's funny. Number 10. Oh, there's only one left to go after this, folks. I know we've gone on a bit. Visuals, scenic, non-representational, pips, diversity. So the visuals on a card, are there things that draw you in or keep you from using or wanting to use or collect those kind of cards?
I'm a person who, one deck that I no longer have in my collection, I liked the color palette. It was it was the depiction of the people that I couldn't get through. So, and it depends upon it, Robin. It really, like visuals, scenic, non-representational. Do I know what a card is when I look at it, or do I have to count things? So I don't mind pips if they're pretty, and they are visually pleasing for me. So I'm good with scenic. I'm good with decks without humans in them. That works. I like diversity in it. I like a deck to have the person for which I want the person for whom I'm reading, the querent, to be able to see themselves and to connect with the deck. So,
yeah,
I don't know if that answered your question, but
I tend. Oh, what did I do? I'm going between banners and comments. I forgot to put the comments back on. I prefer scenic decks where there are people involved in their actions that the people are partaking in. I don't particularly need to see myself in the deck. However, I didn't buy a deck once because it was predominantly female images. I think out of the whole deck, every card had a female figure in it, except for I think maybe 3, 4 cards out of the entire 78. And I felt it was so far off balance that I really felt like this deck wasn't meant for me. Usually I can go rise above that, and it's like I don't think about gender or race when I look at a card in my own open face tarot. I mean, some might say, oh, those are bald men in there. Well, they're not really. They're sort of aliens, babies, ghosts. They're not meant to be a particular race or gender. It's meant to be sort of the spiritual aspect of all of us that I feel rises above and beyond race and gender, age, body, size, so forth. So I can usually look at a deck regardless of those elements. And in terms of diversity, I believe in diversity. I'm all for it. I'm not sure how often it's done correctly, to my mind. A lot of times when I see diverse decks, they feel random or tokenistic. It doesn't feel like a natural fit. And I was looking again at the Mara Loon last night, and that is a totally diverse deck that feels completely organic and natural. So sometimes they work, and sometimes I feel like the creator thought, oh, I'm going to get complaints if I don't include certain individuals in here, so I better do it. But it wasn't well thought out enough, or it wasn't felt emotionally enough to be designated properly.
It's so challenging. It's so challenging. So, and you're getting a lot of agreement with what you just said, Robin, in the chat.
I also feel like, okay, this is going to be controversial. I know I'm going to get complaints, but when there are decks where people say, I want people of color in my deck, and then they're put in there, but they're assigned to an archetype, and the deck creator is a Caucasian individual. It's like, how did that person decide that, no, the person of color should be assigned that particular archetype? They've given that sort of a strength or a meaning that, I don't know that it's random or if there's some thought in it. Did they consult people of color to decide which one? Would a person of color be happy that, they've been assigned by a white person that archetype? I don't know. There's so many issues in there that I tend to not even want to go there. But like I said, Lamar Loon works for me, but sometimes decks just don't feel, they just feel like, well, I need to put certain races or certain body types or whatever in there. And I don't think they think enough about how to go about it successfully. And if you know decks out there that you think are successful, I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah. But we're fortunate right now is that there are so many options out there, whereas before there weren't.
MA says tokenism versus true inclusion. Yeah, and Jane says exactly. So Jane says, I love the Luna soul for its inclusion, but sometimes it doesn't fit. I'm not familiar enough with that one. I'll have to have a look. Now, non-representational. That's a recent thing for me. And like the Marseille, which I can read now, and Pip decks I can read now, but I can read them because I'm based in RWS and I do the translations in my head. So, and then non-representational, I've recently embraced and doing the same way, and I go by the labels on the card. Sometimes I pull other elements in, but if the labels weren't on there, I don't know if I would read the card and know exactly which card it's meant to be in a deck. So there are, and so I tend to grab for the scenic ones that I don't have to struggle with mentally or translate in my head to read. The images are all right there. And I think some pips on some Marseille decks are gorgeous in terms of the patterns and the design. But I feel a little twinge of disappointment when a pip card comes up, or if I do a 3-card spread and it's all pips, I feel a little deflated. Like, oh,
It's different than what you're comfortable with. So yeah,
yeah.
I understand.
Comfort level. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Robin's reflections. Oh, I have so much to say. LOL. This is another convo for another day, but I can absolutely say that there are a few decks I've seen that I did not appreciate what my race was assigned to. I remember some of them, people doing a town hall meeting about this, and somebody said that a disabled person, I'm not sure if I'm using even the right word, was assigned the chariot card because they were put in a wheelchair on the chariot card, and they didn't like that connotation that, you know, that's the only card they could be assigned to comfortably is the chariot. You know, it's like, what, because they sit in a chair with wheels, they need to be on a card with wheels, you know? So yeah, I don't have an answer for it. I hope somebody wiser out there in publishing and deck creation can figure it out or sort it out. Sometimes I almost feel it's better to buy a deck where every image on it reflects who you are in all the images than to try to be diverse. That may be one you won't read for others with, but you may find greater satisfaction in reading for yourself with a deck like that. So, okay. Now we'll get to the last prompt. Did we start at 10:30? Oh my gosh, we're going up to almost 2 hours.
Yep.
So hopefully we can change of systems, number of cards, redefined labels. Now, you know what I'm talking about here, right?
Yeah, I'm okay with adjusting the system so long as it comes with a book to explain it and it's not overly complicated. I am also okay with changing the number of cards because, you know, having multiple lovers cards is fine for me, and I can pick which one I want to have in the deck based upon the reading, or I keep them all in because of what I think of as the lovers card. I actually appreciate redefined labels. If we can people struggle, they bring their own. I bring my own baggage when I read the tarot, and if people reframe it and they say things in a different way, but it's like, oh, I like that wording. I appreciate that. I value that. I appreciate it. So
I have decks that I love that have changed the labels or redefined the system, and others that I don't. But they still kind of put a barrier for me. Like Richie mentioned yesterday, the Forest of Enchantment tarot. I love the greens and the foresty fairy tale quality of that deck, but the renaming of like boons and I forget even what boons are, but it's like it relabels them, and then if they relabel the court card names too, like in the Thoth, you know, it's like, no, I'm set in the RWS system. I want the labels to be the same, even if the visuals don't feel like they're stereotypically matching those labels. Again, it's a comfort level for me. I know the system. It works for me. I don't want to do the translation in my head. You may have had a beautiful concept by renaming them or reconfiguring it, but no, I don't want to do that. Even my last deck, the Toadstool Tarot, I put in extra cards. I put 4 element cards and 4 court cards, and I'm not completely happy with those. I tend to want to I sort of wish now I'd left it at majors only and left those cards out. I haven't run across anybody who's used the additional cards in a way that seemed really insightful or innovative or particularly helpful. and including myself, and it just feels to me like extraneous appendages that I don't need. Lop them off.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
you know how I feel about that. I want 1 through 10 cards added to it
yeah,
because that's how I would do it. Donna Riedler said, I don't mind different systems because I like learning new things, almost like a different language. And Maruda said, if it's a different system and labels, I think of it more as an oracle than strictly tarot. And Emma the Gray said, as long as I know in advance before I buy it, I can decide if I want to put the effort into learning it.
yeah.
So
I think different systems might be something, a never say never case, where in the future, it's somewhere down the road, my taste will change and I will want to delve into other possibilities. But at the moment, I am still learning every day about tarot and that one
of
system.
course.
It's, and I don't need to be distracted by, in my course of learning, by learning other systems or having them thrown at me when I'm still trying to learn tarot.
Yeah.
Having said that, I am just now changing. It takes me a long time to change things. I'm just now moving in the direction of opening up to using spreads, which I used like open readings and maybe 3-card spreads, basically. And I just bought a book on spreads, and I just ordered a spread deck with keywords that you can pull cards and create a spread. And they have the word in bold in the middle of it, and then on the top, so you can overlay a card and still see what the meaning. So it's quite kind of like houses in Lenormand, and you lay the card on top, and you see how each card relates to the card underneath in terms of reading it. And I think I'm going to have a lot of fun learning, expanding my awareness using that. But it took me forever to get there. It took me a long time to get around to doing Marseille.
Yeah, but you're there, and that's what's fun about it. And so long as you're learning, that's a good thing. You're always learning, and so you're adding new things to your reading toolbox.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Can you think of any other? We did 11 of these here. Can you think of any other things, elements that keep you from buying a deck or using a deck? Things that maybe we didn't really talk about, how you might fall in love with a deck and then it's like a one-night stand, and then they go to the back of your shelf and you are not tempted to pull them again. I don't know. Is there something that will keep you from drawing a deck out to use?
I think one of the things that I pay attention to is I'm going to sneeze. You've got a couple of comments in chat.
We don't mind you sneezing. What deck is that, Robin? I need help with spreads too. I don't remember what we were talking about when
you were talking about you bought a book or a deck to help you with spreads.
Oh yeah, it's on Etsy and I can't remember the name of it. I'll do a walkthrough or flip through when it shows up. See, another thing I need to do for my channel is figure out how to do an overhead camera shot while I'm talking to you face to face. So like Chris does on his channel, so I can show people the cards I'm working with while I'm conversing with you.
I agree with you, M.A. the Gray. The last deterrent for me is the ethics of the publishers or the creators. We're very public now, and if your behavior is such that it doesn't line up with me, then I have not purchased decks because of that.
Okay. Well, I think you and I talked about this offline at one point, and I said that usually doesn't affect me. I won't rule it out. I'll think about it, but I have things that if I know that we buy things all the time where we don't know about the publisher or the creator, we know the private lives. I have things where I found out things about a creator that, or they're just horrible personalities, horrible people in the way they treat other people, etc. But somehow they channeled this artwork that I resonate with, and I love the deck.
Yes.
The flip side is I have people I absolutely love. They're so warm, kind-hearted, friendly, supportive, etc., etc., and they create art that is just meh, or I don't like it, you know?
Yeah, and that's, it's my choice, because I have some decks where I found out later about some things, and I'm like, all right, I can separate it, and sometimes I can't separate it, and that's part of it.
Sometimes
So,
ignorance is bliss. Sometimes it's what you know you wish you didn't know. You know,
of
it's like
course.
you have a deck or something, and you find out about something, and then it keeps you. Okay, the Jodorowsky book, you know, and deck are, those are things that are very famous, very well known by tarot enthusiasts, very well loved. And yet I can't bring myself to buy his deck or to buy or read his book because of the way women were treated in, and brutal violence was shown in a movie he directed, El
Yeah.
Topo, years ago, that I walked out of. And I just can't get, I shouldn't have said that probably, because people that don't know and love his stuff, this could change their viewpoint if they find out more about
Yeah.
him. But it's just, if I had that deck every time I picked up or looked at it, my mind would think about what I already know and remember about that, and that would taint my working with it.
And I think that that's important, that you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, because I think the consistent thing with all of this is it's how I interact with these decks, and it's about that relationship. So if I know what I want, then, and what I can do and what I can't do, and I honor that, great. I'm good with that. So, because in your hands, a deck may be beautiful as you read with it, and I get it in my hands, and it just doesn't work for me. That's okay. It's like musical instruments. Sometimes people have an affinity for one type of instrument where they don't in another, and that's all. It's all good.
Yeah, and in closing, I just want to say to everybody out there, this was not meant to be a conversation to trash decks or qualities of
No.
decks. This is an individual thing, and it really is about awareness. You know, it's
Yep.
about being aware of what resonates with you and works for you, and what
Absolutely.
doesn't. And just because it doesn't resonate or doesn't work for you, doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It's like that thing, one man's trash is another man's treasure. There have been decks that I just cannot stand, and people love them, you
Yeah.
know. And it's great that there's such a range out there of choices, that there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
And you just need to figure out, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, need to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. Might be more helpful in your acquiring of decks. If you know
Absolutely.
doesn't work for you, why go there, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
So anyway, we've been on here for a little more than 2 hours, and I didn't expect that at all. But it's great. I was glad you were here, Gerald. I was glad that everybody else jumped in, and
Yes.
we all gave each other some things to think about, and
Yes.
shared our own likes and dislikes. And again, this was not, trash your deck. It's,
Hmm.
and people have
Yeah.
done things like that, but
Not here. That's not what we were doing.
thank you all for spending the time with us. And
Yes.
I'm thrilled that I actually went on at this hour of the day on a Saturday, and
Hmm.
I think we had some people here that I've not seen in my lives
It's
before. So
wonderful.
that's a
Yeah.
nice.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Yes, thank you again. I'm gonna end the broadcast now. Thank you, and hope to see you next time I have the impulse for a impromptu pop-up.
There you go.
And
Bye.
also special thank you to Richie and Ben for introducing this conversation.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Goodbye.
Bye.